Out of the cloud of smoke from tear gas canisters and the crowd of charged protesters, some of whom are hurling stones at the police, is the convoy in which Azimio leader Raila Odinga and his team are moving. The vehicles are tucked into the sea of demonstrators as they make their way down the road between Embakasi and Pipeline in Nairobi. The lead vehicle is followed by that which has media teams on board. This has a sound system which enables the media to get connected to the audio system for clear reception when the leaders speak on the microphones. Then, more tear gas. The crowds disappear into the clouds of smoke. The convoy is now on the front line. As the vehicles were being fired at, the tear gas got overwhelming. The men hanging on the side of this lead vehicle, KCH 822R, drop off and run for that much desired and needed breath. The driver opts to turn back, as is the case with the other vehicles in the convoy. As the U-turns are being made, the media vehicle, KBB 233B, is now at the front, the most vulnerable, and its occupants begin to flee. The driver as well also abandons the vehicle. The journalists atop the SUV are seen raising their hands in surrender, but the police will not surrender on their affront. The water cannon truck swings into action, complementing the tear gas which is still being lobbed. It's an active scene. The vehicles with the leaders turn, leaving the media vehicle. The journalists, some of whom are badly injured, manage to come down and seek refuge. The driverless vehicle sits between a wet road and deserted sound equipment, windscreen damaged, cables hanging, and canisters and stones littered around it. The backs of the Raila Odinga convoy turned to the vehicle as they drive in the opposite smoky direction. While one would expect calm to be the case here, the police are yet to be done with their assignment. This series of images shows a man in civilian clothing, masked and armed, breaking the windscreen with his gun, piercing through and shooting a canister into the vehicle. If there was anyone left in the car, this would do them damage. As he does that, the other officers, some in uniform and another who would likely be presumed to be a bystander before the drama ensued, appear ready to take out anyone who the tear gas may smoke out of the car. The shooter walks away, then comes back for another round, this time breaking the driver's window and firing yet another canister into the vehicle. After this, it seems his work is done, going by the fact that he checks his gun and walks away. Dan Mwangi, NTV.
Now, shock has gripped the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leadership after what appeared to be an attempt on the life of their leader Raila Odinga this evening. Odinga, who had just been forced to abandon his anti-government protest at Pipeline area in Nairobi, claims to have been directly shot at least 7 times at the southern bypass as his convoy made its way towards Karen. Here's NTV's Ibrahim Karanja with the details.
If this vehicle was not armored, this particular one here would have gotten him. Live bullet and this one as well.
The marks on Raila Odinga's vehicle after leading anti-government protests in Nairobi Thursday have sent chills down the spines of the Azimio leadership and their supporters. This is around 5 p.m. Thursday in Nairobi as Odinga's convoy came to its first rest of the day following a day of protests that were largely calm and only turned violent when the protesters came across a police barricade while joining the eastern bypass from Mukuru kwa Njenga and Kware slums.
Deliberately throwing tear gas. I do not know whether 20 or how many canisters were thrown at Baba's car and directly at the many cars, including mine, that the windscreen was it's shattered, but it's still on.
Because there's no reason why police should use this kind of force against unarmed citizens.
Enough is indeed enough. I will not allow them to get this far. They crossed the red line, basically.
What followed was a rough ride with police officers stationed almost everywhere, lobbing tear gas canisters at Odinga's convoy. and at some point employed the use of live ammunition, targeting all vehicles. The situation worsened on the southern bypass from the Ole Sereni Hotel towards Karen as a police Land Cruiser hot on the heels of the convoy consistently fired at the entourage. Other leaders, including Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka and NARC Kenya's Martha Karua, had their vehicles caught up in the melee.
This is an obvious assassination attempt. Look at where they are aiming. It is back left, where they know that our leader would be sitting. And you can see, if they can't get the head, they are trying anywhere they can get.
This is our motherland. We do not have another country. Yes. And if the Constitution gives us the freedom to demonstrate peaceably, why would they want to kill us? There's no doubt in our mind that they've determined they want to kill some of us.
The Azimio leadership expressing its consternation with the happenings, even as they insist that next Monday's protests are still on until their demands are met. Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.
Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga and his counterpart Kalonzo Musyoka have lashed out at the Kenya Kwanza government over the attacks meted out on journalists covering the anti-government protests. Odinga's statement comes after NTV's cameraman Eric Isinta and a host of other journalists were injured by tear gas canisters while in the line of duty. And as NTV's Sydney Chazima now reports, the attacks on journalists appear to be a well-choreographed scheme aimed at scaring away the media from covering the protests.
In a fresh round of attacks, which appear to be deliberately aimed at journalists covering the Azimio One Kenya anti-government protests, NTV's camera person Eric Isinta was left bleeding profusely after a tear gas canister was fired in his direction, hitting his face. Isinta, through the help of his colleagues, was rushed to the hospital where he received medical attention.
Kufika hapa before tukija kujeni kwa barabara kwa main highway, teargas ikaanza kutupwa. Zikatupwa. Moja ikakuwa too much, sasa tusioni mbele juu tumejaza, so nilikuwa na gas mask na ile helmet. Ikaingia paka kwa gas mask. Ikabidi nimetoa. Nilikuwa nimevaa ile bullet. Moja ilipigwa ikagonga ile helmet. Kaingia hapa ndani. Ikaingia kama jalipuka. So we have to kuanza kuchoma. Hata mimi nichoma. Ukiangalia hapa by the way nimechoma hapa hivi side. Nimechomeka hapa. So nikaitoa before ichumba, nikaitupa nje. Hiyo kidogo nikitoa hiyo ngine nikasikia mimi nimekuja pa. Nikanigonga hata maana imepiga impact.
But it is not just Isinta who was affected. KTN camera person Timon Abuna also found himself in trouble, sustaining injuries on his head. In Kisumu, Citizen TV's Dismas Nabiswa, caught in between confrontations between the police and rioting goons, was also left injured. Speaking moments after their entourage was forced to take a detour to Karen, Raila Odinga alongside Kalonzo Musyoka have hit out at the government, terming the attacks on journalists as an affront to media freedom.
It is very unfortunate that in the whole of these skirmishes, the media is being targeted seriously for attack. The other day and in today, several journalists have been injured, very seriously injured today by tear gas canisters which have been thrown.
They crossed the red line, basically. We also noticed that the media were a serious target. Yeah, when we were turning around, because we had hoped that after dispersing the crowd, at least it would allow us to go ahead. But that's when the Raila Odinga's car came and the serious barrage.